Okay, so let's talk about hanging punctuation, or actually in this case, hanging quotation marks. It's a little thing that most people never do, but it's a way to make our slides look much more professional. So when you're using a quote like this, so we have our visual, which goes with the quote, and we have a flush left, jagged right, that's fine. So we have a nice line on the left, but with the quotation like that inside the text box, it's just kind of messy. It's awkward. So if we hang the punctuation, then we get a nice straight line. So that's what we want to go for. And of course, we could change the quotation marks to match a color of the theme, make them a little bit larger to call attention to themselves, to make it obvious that this is a quote. These are not my words, but these are words of someone else. So recently, when I was at the Hilton Hotel in Waikiki, so there's this wall of history, something like that. It's really interesting. All the famous people who have stayed there over the years, and I noticed this one with the JFK. So here's the quote, and then you see that the punctuation, the quotation is hanging off of the left. So that's really nice. Most people are never going to notice this, but it's just a way to give it sort of a really clean, polished look. As I went around the corner, I came across this shop, nice sans serif font, all cap, and then you see we have the hanging punctuation, so it makes a nice clean line. You'll start to see it everywhere now. So in the third edition of Presentations Zen, I have several pages where I show this kind of thing. So these are slides from that book, or a little bit longer slides. So I have the quotation marks are outside on the left, so they're hanging quotation marks, and you can just do it in a myriad different ways. Something like this. This one being a little bit more creative. I'll show you some more examples like this. Now, this is nothing new, of course. This goes back, at least in the West anyway, back over 500 years to Gutenberg, the Gutenberg Bible. So if you look at this block text, you see that punctuation is outside the block. So it just makes it a little bit cleaner and easier to read. It's just a nice look. So again, we want to go from this, which isn't the end of the world, but it just looks really clean this way. And most people are not going to do this. Pros are doing this all the time. But it's something that you can do to make your slides look a little bit better, your quotations look nicer. So I'm going to show you how you can do this inside the text box, which isn't the way I usually do it, because I want to use much bigger punctuation marks. And if you make it larger, it's just going to mess up the spacing between lines. So I copy and paste and make the quotation marks outside the text box. But you could do it inside. So if you use the up at the top in the rulers, you have these little indent markers. So I'll show you how to do that. And this is the way I usually do it, where these are just three separate, well, actually four if you include the name, four separate text boxes. I like doing it this way. So here we have three text boxes. But anyway, let me show you how to do it in PowerPoint and Keynote before then showing you some more examples. Okay, so here it is in PowerPoint. You see that we don't have a hanging quotation. So just put your cursor right at the beginning, and you go up here to the ruler, and you want to take the triangle. It's going to take this little box below it. So you want to click on the triangle, not on the box itself, and then just move that over to the right, and you can finally just kind of adjust it. There we go. And you see that even if we move the text around, that it's still going to have that alignment on the left, so it still works. Okay, then in Keynote, it's quite similar. So again, you want to make sure you have the rulers on. So if you don't, just make sure that you have show rulers. Right now I have hide rulers, so hide rulers. But you want to just go show rulers, so make sure you have that. So there it is. And we put our cursor right there at the beginning. And you see we have something kind of similar, but just take the triangle, which will move everything a little bit to the right. And then you can take the little rectangle above and line it up. And you can see that we have it. If you're not sure, just take the guide and you can see that we have that. That's pretty good. And again, if you move this around, you'll see that it still lines up. If you want to do it that way, right? That's if you want to keep everything within the text box. And we have the nice hanging punctuation. Okay, so you can get really creative with it. For example, here's a Bill Evans quote. And this looks okay, like this, it's fine, but it's just a little bit nicer to have that clean line on the left, and then the quotation marks I make a little bit larger so that they pop out, so oh, this is a Bill Evans quote. Yeah, and then the color also comes from the background slide. And this one here, so the color of the typeface is coming right from the cup. It's a bilingual slide, and then we have a hanging punctuation on the left side. Now, in this case, you could, for example, if you're quoting Carl Sagan, and you might show a picture of him as you're introducing him, and then you could show his quote. You could do it this way, for example. And I'll show you a different way at the end. This one. So how did I do this? So this one, is sort of a centered quotation. It doesn't have to be. You could do flush left, or you could even do flush right in this case to kind of wrap around his face. But anyway, so there's the quotation, but you'll notice the quotation marks are put in a little bit different way. And this way, this is a pretty standard way that I usually do quotation. So you could do it like this, or you could do it like this. And again, you could like highlight a certain part of text. For example, as you come through, you could read it. For example, where Richard Feynman said that the first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. You could do something like that. And or you could show it like this. So it's the same photo, it's the same everything, but just arranged in a different way. Now, you might often take a quote from a book, so it's kind of good to show the actual book. So this one I just did. I'm sure you have the book, so you could take a picture of the book, which would be better than here, which is from Amazon. But anyway, so here's the book, and then here's the quote from the book. And the color of the quotation mark could be from the cover of the book, for example. But anyway, we have a hanging punctuation on the left, or something like this. Okay, so let me show you how I did that quotation for Carl Sagan with the really big quotation marks. So we start with a photo, but this is how I crop it. So I want the photo to be this large. And then I want to go into, well, in my case, I'm going into Adobe Express. If you use PowerPoint, you could probably remove the background pretty well in PowerPoint. Right now with Keynote, it used to do a great job with removing backgrounds. For some reason, it does a really terrible job with getting the background removed. So I just go into Adobe Express, which is really good. But you want to get the background. You want this subject here to be by himself. Just keep that to the side, and we'll come back to that. So here's the original photo, and then, okay, there's the quotation, so I'll put it there. And the reason I'm using double quotation marks, but the reason that I started with a single is because when it's double and then you increase the size to a great extent, the space between the singles becomes too big. And so I just use two singles and put them closer together like that. Okay, so we see that they're on top of our subject here, but remember we already cut him out, so now we can put him back, and we can even make him a little bit bigger. We can even make him just move a little bit. So that's how I do it. It's very straightforward. Let's look at this example, like before, after. Let's try to improve this. I mean, this isn't terrible, but that's not great, right? So let's say we're quoting JFK here. So what could we do? So we could at least move him, because the principle of eye gaze, he's looking the wrong way. Well, we put the text on the wrong side. So JFK is looking off to the left. So let's move it this way. So because we're going to notice a face first, or an image. So that gets our attention, but then we naturally go to the right. We can make it bigger if we don't need these guys in the back. So let's just focus there on JFK. So that's one way. Next step, let's make it a little bit bigger. Do something like this. And you kind of see we use the rule of thirds. We have JFK on the 1/3, and then the text and empty spaces on the left. This is much better, I think. I mean, it's stylistic, but this is more my taste, but we don't have a hanging punctuation, so we could do the hanging quotation mark here, and I think that's a little bit better. I like to make the quotation marks bigger, so in this case, I just remove those because they're inside the text box, so I remove those quotation marks and put these larger ones here in this color, so it just pops a little bit. That was a theme to these presentation slides. They're black and white with the white text and this sort of orange kind of text color. Or you could do it this way if you want to be a little bit more subtle. That's quite different. Just a little bit more subtle way to do it. All right, so hang that punctuation. You can quote me on that.